Welcome to another day in paradise up on the mountain. Man, I love winter. I used to hate winter when I was an urbanite because snow is really just a pain in the ass when you're in a city because city's got a very confined space. It gets in the way and it's just a lot of schlepping really. But when you're out in nature and you're removed from all the insane liberal BS that goes on in the cities, you can enjoy it because there's space, there's quiet, besides the sounds of domestic animals and children, but it really brings a lot of peace. And I'm sitting up here with my wife and my two kids, and we're just watching the insanity play out in the world, and it literally has no effect on us. We are, if you're new here, I'll drop a little bit about what this is all about before I get into my clickbait title. We're off grid and we've been hustling our ass off for the last 2 years to get ourselves set up as best as we can. And this is a big project that we've got up here. We're building a home. We're on 40 acres. We're totally off grid. Most of our energy comes from solar power. Some of it comes from diesel here and there, but I haven't needed to run the generator at all lately because even though I'll get socked in days like this, I get half a sunny day and that tops up the batteries. But we're really having a go at controlling completely our food, water, energy, and shelter. And the whole idea is while Babylon is burning, we'll be eating beautiful food, enjoying nice time in the greenhouse, and eating our own fresh vegetables from the garden, and raising our kids away from the government indoctrination camps. And my boy wants to get into the greenhouse here, so I'm gonna just let him in. You want to get in there, buddy? It's -6 Celsius outside right now. It's 11 degrees Celsius in the greenhouse. Hey, Toby, close the door, buddy. Keep the door closed. As long as my kids keep the door closed, it can stay warm in this greenhouse. If it's sunny out, it'll be 35 degrees in there.
Daddy,
But
your glasses are clogged.
I know they are. Just finished moving our chickens to a winter coop area here. And I just had to kind of hand bomb them all in here. It was a bit of a struggle, but got a new coop. And it's a smaller coop because we only have 16 birds. So my idea with this setup is that we're going to raise meat birds in the spring and summer, but for the winter, right now we have 16 laying hens, and so they can all fit in here. It's more of a compact coop. I'll do another video on it soon, but get the eggs out of there. I've got some heat in there. I got a couple heat mats in here underneath their egg laying areas so that our eggs don't freeze, because it does get about -15 at night. So they got a nice area in this little greenhouse they can scratch around in, which will also fertilize those beds for the springtime. But I thought I'd just do another walk and talk video. Winter seems to be the best time for these things, and it's funny watching all the madness go on, and all the people who just get so hung up on politics. And yeah, this title sounds a little clickbait, and I'm not saying people should vote one way or the other, because it's all BS, guys. The whole system is BS. And it is funny, actually, watching, not that I enjoy conservatives losing their shit, not like I enjoy watching, liberals lose their mind. That's generally more funny, and I generally, appreciate the conservative attitude. And but it is somewhat amusing how people seem to think that just one more vote, just one more election, and we'll get this one in the bag. It's all rigged, you guys. It's all rigged. And the point I actually want to make in this video is that a blue wave in the United States is actually the best thing that could happen for the United States right now. And the reason for that is the whole system is rigged. And what's it going to take to wake people up to that fact? That you got a guy like John Fetterman who's like, he's like the monster from Dr. Frankenstein. And Violet, I'm making a video right now, sweetie. Okay. And he's like the monster from Dr. Frankenstein. He's just a complete oaf. And yet he wins. How could that possibly be? Not that Dr. Oz, who's, essentially he's essentially Dr. Frankenstein. The guy was all for forced vaccinations or mandatory vaccinations. The guy's insane. He's a total Hollywood clown. And who knows what he's into, just like the rest of these folks in the Hollyweird world. But it's all just it's a dog and pony show. It's a complete joke. And the fact that there wasn't a big red wave that everybody was hoping for, I hope that can wake some more people up. Can wake more people up to the futility of politics. The whole system, from the very top to even the low-level bureaucrats, is so corrupt that it cannot be saved. And we're going to come to a time, and we're actually transitioning into that time right now, where there's going to be a great bifurcation of society, where people like myself and many others will just choose not to participate anymore because it's insane. And in my opinion, the only way through this is to let it fall. Let Babylon fall. And a blue wave would actually be a really good thing, in the sense that this incrementalism, the whole idea of the slow boiling frog in water, has been the tactic of the elite. And when I speak about the elite, or when I say the word they, I'm really referring to the sort of inner circle of these large groups, like the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and all these cronies. And those are just the front runners, right? I mean, what's going on behind the scenes, the real elite circles, they don't even have a name. So to sit there and go through it each time is kind of pointless. But this incrementalism thing is actually what they do, and it works. It works every time. And the reason why a blue wave would be better is that it could potentially wake people up faster, so we don't have more incrementalism to the point where we're literally, mainstream society is literally sacrificing children on an altar to Lucifer. That's how insane it's going. You see these crazy, crazy brainwashed feminists that want to brag about murdering children. You see the governments, even here in British Columbia, the government subsidizes child mutilation. They subsidize transgender surgeries. The government will subsidize that. If you want to cut off your penis, there's a government program for you. It's so insane that something like a blue wave, where we get let them run, let them go, let all these politicians like John Fetterman and these AOC and these just insane liberals, let them take over the madhouse. Let them run it. That might be the only thing that could actually wake people up, because it's really disappointing in the sort of the truth community. And I'm talking about just people who put themselves out there publicly and talk about truther things. It's really disappointing when you see a lot of these truthers, guys like Alex Jones, for example, say things that are really true, talk about things that are really true, and they talk about these insane atrocities that have happened and continue to happen and have blown the whistle on a lot of things. But then every election cycle, they jump back in with both feet and push the political narrative again. And I don't know if that is some kind of controlled opposition, or if that's just them really thinking and believing that an election or an outcome on a political scenario can actually turn the tide. It won't. It won't. And the incrementalism thing is the thing that actually we have to be careful with, because remember, the last 2 years of lockdowns were primarily under Trump. Do you think that if Hillary Clinton got elected in 2016, do you think that they would have got away with all the lockdowns and the insane mandates? I don't think they would have. I think that Trump was actually instrumental to make that happen. And I would actually make the case that be aware that in the next election cycle, just after this midterm one, in the next 2 years, that if the D-man, that's what I call Trump, if the D-man gets back in, expect another lockdown. Expect more complete madness. Because here's a guy who, frankly, to be honest, I enjoy the rhetoric to some degree, though less and less. I enjoy the mocking of political correctness. I enjoy just the calling it as it is. I do enjoy that. It is entertaining. And I've always said, you can enjoy the show. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the show. But if he were to be back, mark my words, the New World Order is going to take it to the next level. Because under Trump, he can almost say anything because Trump has become a cult. And that's, of course, by design. And really, if you look at ideologues like Saul Alinsky, who wrote a book called Rules for Radicals, which is really the playbook for the radical left and how to bring in authoritarianism from a grassroots level. That was really the playbook. That's what happened with Trump, and they turned him into an effigy, and that's one of the main tenets of in the book of Rules for Radicals, is to get everybody to focus on one thing, on one guy, and hate that man. And when you're so busy and distracted hating somebody, you're not really paying attention to the big picture. So I really, really hope that more Americans will wake up to this, that this whole political dog and pony show is a complete waste of time. I would say in politics, the only thing that possibly matters is the local politics, because a lot of policies can be stopped at the local level. A lot of federal policies can be stopped at the local level. At the same time, the whole thing is so institutionally corrupt that at this point, with all the insane liberal madness, a lot of people, we're in sort of this revelation time where a lot of the people that are involved, they don't believe this stuff. They don't believe that there's 75 genders. But they're just going along to get paid. And a lot of these politicians are just corrupt through and through. And they'll repeat any rhetoric that the establishment tells them to repeat just so that they can get their piece of the action. But they're all on the way to the gulag. And this is why a blue wave would essentially be better, because it would be nice to not have society disseminate into an absolute degenerate hellhole where they're literally sacrificing children on an altar in public. I mean, anybody who's been awake for a long time knows that these sick Babylonian traditions have been going on for a very long time, and they happen in the private. But they want to bring it into the public. That's why you're seeing more and more of this insanity. You know how the LGBTXYZ acronym gets endlessly changed and updated, and now minor protected, or what are they called? Minor attracted people, like that's a thing now. And so the trend is to incrementally bring more and more absolute moral degeneracy into the public. And it's going to continue to get more insane. And, with Trump having another term, that would probably be the perfect thing to incrementally get us closer and closer to that degeneracy. Whereas if you had a blue wave and you had the Democrats completely just run the loony house, people would just get more and more unsettled and just check out. And you really need to check out, because this whole system needs your compliance. It needs your voluntary compliance. And if you read statutes of almost any country in the Western world, you'll see that word peppered throughout all kinds of statutes. Voluntary compliance. They need to get you to go along. And I don't know why that is. My instinct is it's one of two things, or maybe two things. One is that is baked into law. That's baked into Roman civil law, down to the maxims of equity, that equity doesn't aid a volunteer, meaning that if you did it and you went along with it, there's no equitable outcome for you. You complied. So it's on you. You took the shot. All the information was out there, peppered around in different places, no doubt. But it's on you. There's going to be no remedy for people who did this. And that's why they have all kinds of statutes to protect these big corporations. But the other part of it is that there's probably some kind of cultish reason that they do it. Maybe it's some kind of satanic thing where they need to get you to volunteer. And just think about the last 2 years. Well, shit, it's almost 3 years now of this insanity, and they're still locking some places down. There's still people wearing masks and all this. But just think about the last 3 years. You had a choice the whole time. They continuously, but they used economic incentives. They used bribery, no doubt. I mean, even places like New York were offering a burger and fries to take a shot, right? And they threatened your job, and they did all that stuff here up in Canada, and nobody had to go along with it at all. Nobody did. And the thing that was really funny with the way it was enforced was when it came to the state was very hands-off. What they did is they put pressure on businesses and then made businesses do the enforcing. And that really is a real sign that they're just trying to step away from the liability. They're trying to push the liability onto somebody else. And they were really smart with it. But there's a reason that they do that. And it comes down to either of those two things that I mentioned. Now, I can't prove that, but I just look for patterns. You know, I learned from Bill Mollison, the kind of co-creator of permaculture, as well as David Holmgren, a long time ago, to look for patterns in things. And my pattern eye has always been something that I've really leveraged in my work on the land, but it's also something that I use on a daily basis just to observe the world around me and look for patterns. And I would say it's pretty difficult to dispute otherwise that incrementalism is the way that this whole thing works, this slow boiling frog in water. The parasite class, the big families that took control of the central banks and took control of most industry, finance, and even technology now, they've been playing a long game for a long time. So what makes you think that they're not going to continue to play a long game? I mean, it's all gravy for them. You know, if you are within one of these elite families, you have all the money you can imagine because your family and your business operations are directly involved in printing it. You're involved in tech, in the higher upper echelons of tech. You have everything that you want. But the only thing that you just can't print, the only thing that you can't just make with the stroke of a pen is control over people. And for people who already have it all, they don't really care about material goods anymore because they already have all the material goods. They have yachts, they have homes on islands, they have everything that they could possibly imagine. And so what more do they want? They want control. It's because human desires are infinite. Resources are limited for most of us, but human desires are infinite. And that goes across the board, whether you're rich or poor. The desire to bend the world or even your environment around you is what people do. I mean, even for myself, I'm on this 40 acres on the top of a mountain, and I am molding the landscape to better suit my family and the domestic animals that we raise, the gardens that we grow, the fruit trees and nut trees that we plant. It's always a matter of changing the environment to better suit your needs. But when you're born into a family, when you are driven around with private drivers, and you have private air flights, and you live on private islands, and all these things, you already have all the material wealth that you could want in your life. But what's the next step? Your desire to have it all is control. They want absolute control. And that's what this whole thing is about. and it's going to keep going that way. But don't just think that it's all going to turn from some political election. I would make the case, and I think I just did, that it will actually be worse if it's incremental, because I don't want to see society sacrificing children on an altar. I don't want things to go that way. I don't want my kids to ever see that. And that's partly why we're here. And we unschool our kids, and we're not going to engage in the moral degeneracy that's happening in society at large. But I don't want other people to go through that. I don't want people to suffer. And so, hey, let's hope for a blue wave. Let's hope that in the United States, that wakes people up, because I think the United States is, at least culturally, the last bastion of freedom. There is no constitution in the United States. That was taken out a long time ago in the 1871 Organic Act. But there is the cultural idea of a constitution. There is the cultural idea of freedom. And those actually have more value than a piece of paper. So, in conclusion, I would say, let's hope for a blue wave, folks. Get yourself on the land. Get yourself out of the hellholes. Get yourself as self-reliant as humanly possible. Surround yourself with people that are doing the same things. And your whole world can change right now. You don't have to wait for a political outcome. You can change it now. You just got to take the steps. You got to put in the work. But this is going to be a long game, folks. There isn't going to be this diesel shortage. I'll say it right now. This diesel shortage thing isn't just going to flip a switch and it's going to be pandemonium. It's incremental. It's going to go for a while, folks. So strap in, enjoy the ride, enjoy the show, and get shit done. All right, folks, I'll leave it there. If you guys like this video, please share it. Smash the like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out my site, fromthefield.tv. It's where I post all my vlogs and the vast majority of all my content. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.